Good.
Perfect. Yes, sir. All right. How you doing today?
Good. Good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I saw your message on Podmatch and checked out your background, and you're perfect to have on today's show. So I really do appreciate your time today.
Sure. Sure.
So, from what I from what I gathered, you have written a book about making relationships work, best-selling co-author, Five Languages of Appreciation, and there's a whole much more about your history and who you are, and I would love if you can just touch on that a little bit before we start the show today.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, so I grew up in the Midwest outside of Kansas City, grew up in the context of a family-owned business, did not go into it because I didn't think it'd work. I was the youngest of three brothers and realized I was always going to be the youngest. And I had a different skill set. So I'm a psychologist by training. And I've done some different things. I've worked with ADHD and dyslexic individuals, tested them. And then mid-career, I consulted around the country with family-owned businesses dealing with the family issues intertwined with running a business and transferring it across generations. And through
Yes.
that, ran into an opportunity. There's a book called The Five Love Languages that Dr. Chapman wrote. And I saw how that could potentially uh, be sort of translated to help with family-owned business and workplace relationships in general. So approached him and we wrote the book in 2011 and developed an online assessment to identify how people like to be shown appreciation and then trained, I don't know, 1,300 facilitators across the country and the world. And
Mhm.
so that's what I did. And I wrote some other books on toxic workplaces and stuff like that. But
Excellent. That's We're gonna dive right into that. There's a lot of things that you said that have resonated with me. I mean, I'm the youngest of seven, so I can understand the healthy dynamics and unhealthy dynamics of
yeah,
a
yeah,
family and what that can look like, and also worked in family-owned establishments, and I witnessed real family drama in real time and
yeah, yeah.
what that looks like. But you successfully worked with family-owned businesses, and many of them are doing well. Like, what is the pattern that you've kept coming across beneath the surface?
Well, that you uh, one is you got to get the whoever's the current senior owners, you got to get them together. Because lots of times, at least in the past, it was sort of the business guy, and he was making all the decisions, and he didn't include his wife in it until she's supposed
Mhm.
to sign the papers, and they didn't include Jeannie, who was, the girl who hadn't worked in the family, that kind of stuff, and then
Yes.
educate the next generation about what's going on. And I was dealing with high net worth families and understanding um, wealth and how to manage that and how to parent your kids so they grow up with work ethic and that kind of stuff. So those were some of the key themes.
Like when you said like educating, like what does that have? Because I dealt with that. I'm the youngest of seven, and you would think that everyone would pass along that information of like obstacles that they've encountered, but they kind of just like, you know what, you got what it takes. Like you're just enough. You can
Well,
handle it.
yeah,
Like why
yeah.
is that?
Well, I don't know. I think people, especially founders, forget the lessons they learned and the challenges that they had to work through.
Hmm.
And often the second generation don't have the same challenges.
That's
Uh,
true.
and
That is very
so
true.
there's just sort of a misunderstanding of what needs to happen for it to move on successfully. And keeping deciding how you're going to work with families and businesses. Are you going to emphasize the family part? Are you going to emphasize the business part? Because you can tear a family apart, or you can blow a business up if somebody's not doing their job. So,
That's interesting. Would you suggest that you don't go into business with family, or
oh no, I think that it
is
can
it
be
case by
done
case?
well. Yeah, because I mean, you gotta work at it, but it can be done because you have common history, and usually pretty common values. So that works.
Just like any relationship, it requires work, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more, and I would love to touch on that as time progresses and stuff throughout this episode. But in your bio, it says like the number one reason employees leave isn't because of money. That goes against a lot of conventional wisdom. Like with your research, like what do they actually keep missing in this scenario?
Well, lots of times the leaders are pretty business driven, financially driven, and that's what's important to them, but that's not always what's important to the team members and employees. And I mean, we've got decades of research that showed that, paying people more or giving them more benefits isn't going to keep them. It's really that they need to feel valued and appreciated. And for younger generations, it's a focus on not just what they do or perform, but on who they are as a person, that they're more than just, whatever their role is at work. And older generations tend to miss that.
So when you're saying like older generation, talking about baby boomers, and then we're comparing the
Yeah,
and
and
contrasting.
and after and the next generation, I mean Gen X as well. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, that's really important to outline for those that are listening. Now, with like before we get into tools, like what's the cost to organizations when employee doesn't feel valued, like emotionally and financially?
Well, it's one. So the huge cost is that they leave and then they can't hire people. And so then you have the relationship break of both within the organization or if they're salespeople with their clients, and then you have conflict. You have um, there's research in different industries. I mean, you have higher rate of injuries reported when people don't feel valued.
Okay.
People don't work as hard. There's, sort of the quiet quitting kind of thing that happens. They just sort of go through the motions and don't really get the work done. So it creates loss of productivity and profitability. So it's clearly an economic and functional cost to the business. Because we want people to feel good and all that, but you run a business, and so there's got to be a practical issue there.
So when someone is not feeling valued, I'm guessing it's from appreciation, but then there's also recognition.
Right.
Is there a actual distinction between the two? And
Yeah.
you can break down the differences in simple
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah. So yeah, employee recognition is largely about performance, and it's uh, comes down through the organization, either the executive team or HR, and it's pretty uh, impersonal, and it's sort of everybody gets the same thing. And whereas we believe appreciation's about the person and it's person to person, so it doesn't have to be from your supervisor. Lots of times it's peer to peer, which is more important for younger employees. And it's not always about, getting stuff done. It can be about who you are as a person. I mean, that you've got a good sense of humor, or they like that, you're running marathons and you got the discipline to do that. And so and also we teach that it's really team member to team member. I mean, top down is helpful, but people really are looking to their colleagues to encourage them. Um, and so um, employee recognition's been around, still doing it, but turnover is the same rate, still going down. Employee engagement isn't there. People are just sort of going through the motion. So it's not really working. And so we found that combining our appreciation with recognition works and makes more functional organizations.
So like this isn't anything new that's happening. I'm just wondering like why does it still keep happening? And I don't think it has to do with technological advances with AI, remote work. I mean, I'm sure that plays an aspect in it, but is it something internal that falls down to the individual themselves? When I say the individual, the employee, the workforce. versus what the leader is not doing? Is there something more deeper than that?
That's a great question. I would say that over time, people, and they're sort of split on this, but a lot of people look to work to meet their personal needs. They spend more
Yes.
time at work than they do with family or friends. And so I think that's an driving current there.
Mhm.
And I mean, we sort of shifted values from just, financial success and material success to, living a fuller life. And I think this plays into that
Yes.
people, you know, uh, want to have healthy relationships and not just a nice car or a boat.
Yes. So it comes down to a performance-driven culture within the organization.
Yeah, largely, yeah. And not understanding that we're people and we have social emotional needs that play into performance. And when people feel valued, we've got research shows that performance and productivity improve as well as profitability. So,
So
and
then what
you're not
act
dealing with complaints and stupid little things over what size their monitor is or whether they got a window or that kind of stuff. So,
so then I mean this question came into my head, like what actually drives like a performance-driven work culture?
well, there's a number of things. Partly is a focus on financial success as the only and sole sort of measure of the success of a company. And so everything's measured by that. And so everything that doesn't contribute to that is sort of fat and cut, versus seeing maybe a longer term, healthier organization. I mean, you look at some organizations that like Chick-fil-A, I mean, it's known for its, sort of relationship support and at the flip side of that, they don't have much turnover, you know, and and people are committed. Um, so there, it's yeah, the performance part. I mean, it's a business. You gotta perform. You got to get it done. But there's a context that we're not just work units, but we're people too, and that includes communication and expectations and dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with Chick-fil-A, I feel like they provide autonomy. I feel like they provide structure that sets them up for the future, not just for this position
Yeah,
in particular.
yeah.
And like with my thoughts with employee disengagement or just exhausting themselves, do you think it's like, have you ever come across in your work that maybe people are just settling for positions rather than meeting a position that actually allows them to be their full self, and maybe that there's a connection with relationships in their personal life?
Sure. Yeah. And I think we maybe do that at different stages in our life. I mean, I got four kids. I had twins, and that was a brutal time of life when they were little. And I was just sort of, going through the motions, doing the best I could, but I didn't have a lot to give.
Oh,
And so I think uh, it's a balance of having realistic expectations about work, but also making it more than just a task to get done, and trying to include your full self.
okay. Like, I want to just touch a little bit on like just intimate relationships for a second, if you don't mind. Like, I know we all have blind spots to things. I mean, I'm an organizational development specialist first, father, uh, boyfriend, that all comes into play. So I see things women don't, and women see things that men don't, and nobody's to blame. But what do we get to a point where I can say and suggest my opinion, my value, and it be approached, I mean, and makes me feel understood, but also vice versa for the receiving end, whether it's
Hmm.
male or female.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are different types of relationships and they have different dynamics. I mean, that's part of the re the difficulties of family businesses, right? But like my
Yes.
wife, for a while, I had a psychological practice, traditional counseling practice, and she was the office manager. And we just found that it didn't work for us because I'd come home and at dinner I'd be talking to her about work stuff.
Yeah.
And sort of, I was the owner and leader of the business, and she was my assistant. So I was always sort of talking down, and that doesn't work long term in most marriages. And so we decided, we'd rather be married than be business partners. So she stepped out of that. I got an office manager, and because the dynamics are different.
And I can see that because when you're constantly, I mean, talking down to her, she's not feeling equal. And at what point, when does it turn off? Because we have trouble turning off work as it already is. But
Right.
the fact that you have your own business is like, I bet you had to really put a lot of effort into see things from a mutual perspective.
Yeah. And I wasn't very good at turning it off. So that's why we had to go the other direction.
Yeah, people that really take pride in themselves and excel in life have a difficulty doing that. That's
Yeah.
yeah. But like, what about the origin story of the five love languages of at work? What is that all about? What are you
Yeah,
doing?
so I was consulting with a family-owned business in North Carolina and talking to the dad and asking him how the succession plan was going. And he said, it's fine. My son's stepping up. I think it'll work. I walk across the hall, asked the son the same question. He said, this is a disaster. It's never going to work. I can't ever please my dad. And I thought, my wife and I were reading The Five Love Languages by Dr. Chapman at that point. And I thought, I
Great
wonder
book.
if
Yeah.
we could translate this to work-based relationships. So I pursued him. Took me a year to get through to him and sort of pitch the idea. And because I was a psychologist, but also working with businesses, and we had some other similar backgrounds that he chose to work with me, and so we um, the five languages of appreciation are the same in name as the five love languages. So words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and physical touch. And we created an online assessment that identifies people's language, but also the specific actions, because you can get the language right, but miss it by, like, especially in words, doing things publicly when the person doesn't want to be praised publicly. So you need to get
Oh,
the action right,
yeah.
and then be able to identify to a team how each other like to be shown appreciation and help them implement that. So well, we've been fortunate. It's gone well. We've sold 800,000 plus books, and 450,000 people have taken our online assessment. It's in about 8 or 9 different languages. And we have
Okay.
certified facilitators to help organizations apply it. So,
So were you able to recognize a difference between companies prior to implementing the love languages to post? And what was something that you recognized that stood out?
yeah. So, well, and actually, we have research shows that when team members feel valued, absenteeism goes down, coming in late to work goes down, conflict goes down, productivity goes up, profitability goes up. So it's sort of like clearing out, a lot of things that get in the way so that you can focus your time and energy on the mission of the organization and are more efficient that way. So yeah, we had a piece written about us in the New York Times, work we did with a mining company. You wouldn't think miners are big, like verbal appreciation people, but
Yeah.
these guys and gals, but mainly guys, took it to heart because we talk about authentic appreciation, not just sort of going through the motion and just saying stuff.
Yeah.
But we have symbols for each language, and they actually got the symbols printed and put on their hard hat so they could see when they were working with guys, and so and they continue to work. In fact, they make it part of their onboarding process that people take the assessment when they get past probation and then go through the training.
You would think there'd be some difficulty with the type of leadership that is requiring your services, because I'm assuming it's an old school mentality where, I mean, appreciation really isn't at the top of their like of their idea of what we need to be doing. We need to reduce the numbers. We need to save money. We need to do this. And
Yeah.
so I bet
Well,
there's a
one of the things
difficulty
about
with that.
appreciation as opposed to employee recognition is it doesn't cost a lot. Because I mean, it's words, it's time, the acts of service, there's gifts, but the gifts that we're talking about are not like big bonuses or anything. It's just small stuff that show that you're getting to know your colleagues. It's, maybe their favorite cup of coffee, you bring that in the morning, or
Mm.
uh, in the afternoon, maybe a snack or a magazine about their favorite sports team. It's just really a person at a personal level. So the cost isn't much aside from just some time to learn about it, get an assessment done, and then implement it.
Have you came across a company where they the turnover wasn't as drastic as you would hope? And if you did, what was something that was difficult for them to kind of
Like,
look at?
explain your question a little bit for me. Like,
As far as sharing them with this information, as far as appreciation versus recognition, and with what your book entails about the five languages of
that it didn't
appreciation.
have that much impact.
Yes.
Oh yeah, sure. So one of the deals is that, we we don't force people to participate because that undermines the perceived authenticity. So there's some people that's like, this is stupid. They should just work. Um, and I just ask those people, I say, hey, I understand it. Just if you just stand to the side and not be, sort of obstructive, and we actually sort of win them over time because we're focusing on being genuine, and that's helpful. And then there are some people that are more difficult to appreciate than others, right? They're sort of prickly,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
what do you do? And so in our training, we have a half-day training program we take teams through, and teach them how to deal with that. And largely, you make sure you know what they do and find out from their team members what they're good at. And then also lots of times it's just helpful to spend some time with them, get to know them, where they came from. Lots of times we don't understand people from different backgrounds. And so we misinterpret things. And so that sort of helps us get past that and move forward.
So for our younger audience looks at who's tech savvy and is utilizing AI, um, why won't AI or perks or a better system solve employee disengagement or if appreciation is missing?
Well, because we're people and we're social. I mean, I'm just straight,
Yeah.
uh, AI can be helpful in, getting a lot of other things done, but people want to know that they're valued and what they're doing. But I mean, you don't want to just go and spend your time and energy and do stuff and nobody cares. And it's not like you have to be praised all the time. One of the things we find is that once you identify a person's language and actions that's important to them, it doesn't take that much to help them feel satisfied. It's not like you have to praise them all the time. But if they're like we found in, over the hundreds of thousands of people that have taken it, that over 50% of the people in the workforce don't really value words. So if you're complimenting and praising people,
Yes.
you're sort of wasting your time and energy. Whereas if you stop by and chat and see how they're doing, a little bit of time with them, or help them out with, the end of the day, clean up the job site or any kind of little thing, it can make a difference. So it's really about getting the right language and action that makes a difference. And it's pretty cool to see over time how things really move forward.
So what do they value that you came across?
Well, it just varies from person to person, and that's sort of the tough thing. I mean, so like about 50% of people are introverted and sort of shy. Those people don't want to be brought up in front of a big group and praised in front of a big group. I mean, it's the worst thing for them. So if you do that, you've actually sort of created a negative rather than a positive. So whether they might prefer to get just a personal note or an email from their supervisor and what they value about them, or going out to lunch together. So it really is about the individual. And one of the things that we found is that, it's too much responsibility for the leader to carry on themselves to show appreciation to everybody. So that's why we teach team members as well as the leaders how to show appreciation. And actually, most team members, want to be able to show appreciation to a colleague that's helped them out or doing a good job. So it's not all just top down.
So you would say the biggest blind spot leaders have is showing appreciation, or would you have something a little more
Well, I
specific?
would say the first one is I think they go to money first. And
Yeah.
that, if you pay people more, which actually is a problem if you're in a business, you have to keep raising raises. We know that, people, yeah, if you get a raise or a bonus, it sort of perks you up for maybe a couple months, but after that, it goes away. So do you have to keep doing that? Well, that doesn't work for your business model. All of a sudden, paying people a lot of money. And so first they go to money, and then second they go to words in public, words, which doesn't work for a lot of people. Um, and then I think if if they can get discouraged because it feels overwhelming for them to do it all themselves versus being able to train the team members how to show appreciation.
I like that. I feel like we covered a lot of unique aspects from leadership and organizational reality checks to the results and the case studies. But something specific for me that I would love to address would be for those that don't understand like the difference between like intensity and intimacy and how that affects a relationship. I'm sure
Mm.
there's definitely a connection with not just personal relationships, but also platonic and professional. If you could just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, so intensity, I worked with a guy who's a great guy, but I mean, and he was a verbal guy and he praised everybody all the time. But at some point it was just like, George, I got it, but can you help me out with this project? I mean, it
Yeah.
was just like too much of the same thing. And really, it's interesting how it's sort of like, I don't know, in physical health, you get a little bit of the right vitamins and chemicals, and you got a balance there,
Yes.
versus just taking vitamin C and you're getting acidic over that. But it's and people talk about consistency. It's really once a year at a performance review is not going to get it done, or twice a year. I mean, it's part of the rhythm of life. It doesn't need to be daily, and you don't have to throw a party that they showed up, but just occasional reminders, and especially newer employees or they're in a new position probably need a little more at the beginning to feel like they're supported and building confidence, and then after a while it can spread out.
I like that. Thank you. Now for our closing, for like any leaders that are listening right now, what's one thing that they could do to start transforming their workplace? What would you tell them?
Well, this is going to sound self-serving, but I mean, we've got a website, appreciationatwork.com. It's the word at, not the at sign, that we've got examples and videos and articles, and then access to the book, The Five Languages of Appreciation. It's an easy read, and you can sort of pick and choose to uh, take parts that you're interested in. But, I would say really look at, and I think a key thing is look at the key team members you don't want to lose, because one study showed that 79% of the people who leave a job cite a lack of appreciation as the reason they're leaving. And so
Very
that's,
relatable.
yeah, yeah. So you want to make sure that the people that you are key for your team know that they're valued and appreciated. And so uh, doesn't take a lot, but some intentionality and just some, I don't know, stability over time makes it happen.
So, if I can ask you, what gives you hope about future work? I mean, despite burnout, disengagement and turnover?
Well, right now we're in a challenging time with AI and people
Yeah,
thinking they gotta, you know, I mean, there's sort of a fear of missing out on that, and everybody's going there,
yeah,
and AI can be a good tool. I think we've got to remember that employees and team members are people, and that we are people first, and we're going to be people. When we were people before we were an employee, we're going to be one afterwards, and if we relate to people and communicate in a way that they have value. The leaders that get that, and we've got new research coming out from the European Union and Securities Exchange Commission. Two companies, one company that gets it and one doesn't. This one outperforms and is more profitable. And so, there's at least a segment of leaders and society that are getting it. There's always going to be some that are just focused on the numbers, but uh,
yeah,
time will tell.
exactly. Is there anything I haven't got to ask you that you would like to touch on for our audience?
Yeah, I think the big thing is to don't try to get overwhelmed by trying to do a whole program for your whole business or organization. Just it's good to learn a little bit and then start somewhere with somebody, and you're going to see the positive effects, and that'll help motivate you to move on.
Agreed. I mean, especially when you're so emotionally attached or you're used to this chaos where a fresh pair of eyes is what you need
Yeah.
to correct the situation. Uh, where can our listeners learn more about you? I know you already suggested the website, but social media handles, anything else you would like to?
Yeah, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's I think Dr. Paul White, Facebook Appreciation at Work, Instagram same thing, Appreciation at Work, Dr. Paul White. But really the best, it's sort of the mothership is the Appreciation at Work website, and it'll get you both about the book and we've got some information about dealing with toxic workplaces, but and then the assessment as well. So
Well, Dr. Paul, I do appreciate your time. Our audience definitely appreciates your time. So this was a good hour. So I do appreciate your time for coming on the show today.
you bet, glad to do it.